Hello. Um, Welcome to Magical Monday Live. Today we are going to talk about creating balance. It's kind of weird. It's weirding me out a little bit. Okay. Oh, now you can see. Now you can see Scooter back there. Okay. So I just want to jump right in, and it doesn't matter. So first of all, if you're watching the replay, please type replay or catching the replay in the comments. Even if you're not going to comment anything else, even if you're not going to do any reactions, totally fine. It just allows me to see who's actually watching this, and it helps me kind of plan for future live streams. But I want to start out, it doesn't matter if you're watching this live or if you're watching it on the replay. I want to start out by asking the question, like, what does balance look or feel like to you? Because balance is such a subjective word. You know, when I really started thinking about the content for this live stream, I really started thinking about what is balance and does that look the same to everybody? And I don't think it does, but I'm going to cover quite a few things today. And hopefully some things, hopefully one or two of these things at least will resonate with you. So before we really begin, let's talk about why balance is important. Okay, so balance is important because if you are unbalanced or imbalanced, your quality of life isn't as good as it could be. If you have balance in your life, you will feel less stressed. You will be healthier, both mentally healthy and likely physically healthy. I know many people sometimes when they are out of balance or out of whack or overwhelmed, that they tend to exercise less or eat more or drink more, smoke cigarettes. Like we all have kind of like unhealthy vices that sometimes we use to kind of get ourselves through the day when we're not feeling very balanced. And when you are incorporating balance into your life, you will find yourself not needing these vices. How can you tell if you are not balanced? Besides the fact that you probably have your intuition screaming at you that you're not balanced, you might just feel out of flow. You might feel like you just have a lot of bad luck that's coming at you. You could feel overwhelmed. You could feel like not everything is getting done. You might have some anxiety. You might feel like you're disappointing people. And I think that kind of aligns with not getting everything done. Turns out not everything's ever going to be done. Spoiler alert. But I just want to move on and talk about what causes you to be out of balance. So here are four things that I feel are main factors that people are out of balance. Overwhelm. We have so much coming at us every day. We have our social media, we have our family, we have responsibilities, we have our craft practice, we've got work, we've got all kinds of different things. And if your life is great, if you're able to balance all of these things across the board perfectly, then that is awesome. Not everybody can do that. Again, everybody's lives are different. Everybody has different responsibilities. That doesn't mean if you don't have kids, like your life is so much easier. If you don't have a job, your life is so much easier. You know, I have found that that's not true at all. It's just different. You just have a different, your overwhelm looks a little bit different. Another thing that can cause a person to be out of balance is lack of boundaries. And this can be a contributor to like the overwhelm. So this might mean that you have problems saying no to things. This might mean that you volunteer for things too often. This might mean you are kind of a people pleaser. This could mean you put yourself, you expect too much out of yourself, or you feel like people are expecting things out of you and you feel like you have to kind of live up to what you perceive other people to think. It's all about boundaries. So when you don't have good boundaries, then You feel resentful. You feel like you're being taken advantage of, even though you're not the one, you're the one that's saying yes. You are the one with the power to say yes or no. For a lot of things, society, we have this like societal expectation to say yes, especially as women. So creating these boundaries, learning how to say no, those are good things. I'm going to talk about that in a second, but so if you do not have some healthy boundaries, that can cause you to feel a little out of balance. Misplaced priorities is another thing that can make you feel out of balance. And this could mean, prioritizing social media over reading for self-improvement. This could mean, working too much instead of spending time with your family. Just think about your priorities, because we all have a full plate, right? Again, work, family, other responsibilities. If you have a side hustle, taking care of your kids or taking care of your dog, like we've got all of these things on our plate, our hobbies that we want to make time for. But think about what you are prioritizing and if that is serving you or not. The last thing I want to talk about when we're talking about being out of balance is missing self-care. So when I talk about self-care, of course, I'm talking about taking yourself to the spa or go to Ulta and buy something like nice for yourself, or, those are all parts of self-care. But self-care also can mean making your doctor's appointments. Self-care on a really bad day might mean taking a shower. So self-care isn't all just spa trips and treating yourself, although it is those things, but it also is taking care of yourself. Like, what are your hobbies? What lights you up? Think about, let's just take a second, just for a moment, and think about, when was the last time that you did something that really lit you up, that made you feel amazing? Think about what that was and when the last time was that you did that. Usually the things that light us up the most, most of the time that is some sort of self-care. We tend to kind of put a lot of those things on the back burner. But in reality, those are the things that are self-care. So it could be a hobby, it could be writing, it could be reading, it could be hiking, it could be whatever lights you up. Think about when the last time was that you did that, and are you prioritizing things like that in your life? Or are you just going to work every day, hating your job, wishing you were elsewhere, coming home, making dinner, just going through the day every single day, and not like, I guess, treating your soul to what it really needs. Okay. So those are a couple things that can cause you to be out of balance: overwhelm, lack of boundaries, misplaced priorities, and missing self-care. So getting back into balance, here, I'm just going to start with 3 things, and then I want to expand on them, right? So consider your expectations. First of all, a lot of us tend to put too much pressure on ourselves. We have these unreasonable expectations of ourselves, like, oh yeah, no, on Sunday, I'm going to take my kid to church. Well, maybe not church for most of us, but I'm going to take my kid here. Then I have a birthday party from 2 to 3, and then from 4 to 5, I have this, and then 6 to 7, we're going to do dinner. And sometimes we overschedule ourselves because we feel like we need to be doing all of these things because it's expected of us. That is not true. There is no rule. There's no rule you have to say yes to every family party. It is not a rule that you can't miss family dinner, or, we all have these expectations that we have of ourselves. If you have your own business, like if you're like trying really hard to make $5,000 this month, and that's your expectation, but in reality, you don't have the time to, a lot of people, if you are any sort of entrepreneur, You're probably in groups or probably inundated with ads that say you can make $5,000 with only 10 hours a month and blah, blah, blah. So we kind of come up with some interesting expectations when it comes to like what we can and can't do in those 10 hours. But again, we need to consider our actual time that we have to spend on this. And then think about if it's really healthy to be doing that. Myself, personally, lately, I have been spending, if I'm not at my day job, I'm working on projects for my business, my coaching, mentoring, etc. business. And it is tiring. And, like I just spent most of this week, and I did make sure I relaxed. I read, I went had lunch with my mom and my sister and her kids. I did have some nice downtime. But other than that, I was like pushing myself super hard to work on this project, to finish this project. Whereas in my planner, I put these 5 things, and instead I did like 50, literally. So make sure that you are considering your own expectations of yourself, and that you're not creating stories in your head of what other people expect of you. Some of us tend to just make up these stories in our head, and we're like, oh, Susan is expecting me to make like the best lemon cake ever for the PTA meeting. Susan probably doesn't care. Susan probably would be happy if you just picked up some lemon pound cake at the market. So we tend to kind of create these stories. So when you are thinking about your expectations, make sure you're not telling yourself stories that are not factual, that you're not assuming things about other people. Also, again, you want to make sure you're creating healthy boundaries. Say no. You don't have to say yes to every play date. You don't have to say yes to every social event that people ask you to go to. And of course, you might want to because they're like your friends and you haven't seen them in a while. But really consider not just that one like get together, but consider the big picture. Like, how is that fitting in your life with all of the other things that you're juggling? And that's kind of how you can help start creating that balance. And then finally, change your mindset. I know it's really difficult, and it kind of goes along with those other 3 things, thinking about your expectations and your boundaries and all of that. And I think a lot of us do a lot of mindset work. We're trying to constantly improve ourselves, be kinder to ourselves, tell ourselves that we can do things that we might not, that's hard for us to believe that we can. But that's mindset work. So those are just like 3 little things. But I just want to go a little bit further and get a little bit witchy woo for you. So the first thing is finding the root. Find the root of what is causing your imbalance. So, these are just some generic things, but everybody's like imbalance is going to be caused by something different. So what is causing the imbalance? It could be like literally anything. So it could be that you feel, if you really, really, really go deep, like let's say you're feeling unbalanced because you have to cook dinner every single night, like 7 nights a week, and it has to be on the table at like 6:30 or 7 o'clock or whatever. And you're like, that's just making me really feel out of balance. Well, of course, that goes along with everything. That's expectations that you're putting on yourself. That is a lack of healthy boundaries. It is, you're missing self-care because you're obviously feeling resentful about it, but you might want to go a little bit deeper and ask yourself why it bothers you so much. Why does it bother you so much? And what would happen if you didn't do it? What would happen if you didn't cook dinner every night? What would happen if you cooked dinner 3 nights a week? So tying into that, one activity that you can do to help you find the root is journaling. And when you're journaling, that could just mean you write the question like, what would happen if I didn't cook dinner? Or what would happen if I did not do this? Or what would happen if I did do this? And just start journaling. And the key is to be really curious about your own self. So it could be, what would happen if I did not cook dinner? You'd be like, well, my kids wouldn't eat, but they would still eat because, instead of cooking a big family dinner, we could make 5-minute chicken nuggets or whatever, there's always options. Um, you know, but it could be something like that is deep, like shadow work that you might not even understand. Like, for example, if I don't cook dinner, then I'm a bad mom. And if I'm a bad mom, and then you can like explore what that would mean. Like, well, why do I think I would be? Why would they think I'm a bad mom? You could say, well, because if I'm not cooking for them, I don't love them. So like you can, and then you can like realize that that's pretty ridiculous. And then you can kind of start building back up from there. So journaling is great. You can write down things, but really when you're trying to get to the root of an issue, there are 2 things that I really suggest. Number 1, be curious as if you're an outsider. And number 2, just keep asking yourself why, and like, what would happen if I didn't do this? Why do I feel this way? And just ask yourself that and just write. A lot of people just talk about journaling and do journaling prompts and stuff like that. But really, when you're trying to work to the root of the issue, I really suggest that. You might want to think about and work on chakra sensing. There are many guided meditations, especially if you have Insight Timer. It's a free guided meditation app. I think they have it on Apple. I know they have it on Android. And there are lots of free chakra meditations where they will take you through concentrating on each chakra and sensing each chakra and seeing where it is. Are you spinning too fast or is it too large? Like, what do those energy centers look like to you? And then some of them is just kind of like a chakra check-in. Like, where are my chakras today? And some of them work on like actually balancing your chakras. So there are tons of good meditations on that. If you don't have Insight Timer or you don't have a smartphone and that's not your jam, I'm pretty sure you'd probably be able to find something very similar on YouTube. Another way to be in balance is to make sure that you are aligning with the seasonal energies. Right now here in the Northern Hemisphere, spring is coming. We've already had the spring equinox, flowers are blooming, and just work on aligning with those energies. And there are tons of different ways to do that. I posted on my Instagram a while ago, like I change out my decorative towels, and right now they are flowers and pretty and springy, and like my tablecloth is springy in my dining room. And I do spend a lot of time in the kitchen because I do kind of cook a lot. Not a whole lot, but I do cook several nights a week. And so when I change these things out and I'm looking at them all the time, it's almost like you have an altar, right? So when you're looking at your altar all the time, you're kind of reminded of your craft path, and you're reminded if you light your incense. It's kind of a really good reminder of the energies that exist in the world. And when you are aligning yourself with seasonal energies by decorating your house, even, you're reminded that spring is here. And yes, that is on a conscious level. Hey, it's pretty. My house looks like spring. But also on a subconscious level, you are aligning yourself with those energies. It's those traditions that you can create every year during the turning of the wheel. Also, you can eat seasonally. When you're thinking about what you're going to make for dinner, what is actually in season right now. So it's spring. So we have a lot of spring greens and like spring mix and baby greens and it's very different for like depending on where you are in the world and even like which zone you're in. But one good way to figure out like what is in season is what is on sale at the grocery store, like fruits and vegetable wise. Like for example, asparagus is all over the place right now. So I don't have my like seasonal eating chart like with me, but if every week asparagus is 99 cents a pound, I would say that they have a plethora of asparagus that they want to get rid of, and I will be happy to put it in my belly. Again, doing rituals for the turning of the wheel, spring equinox, etc., is always a good thing. And also you can align with the energies of the moon, the waxing, waning, full new moons. You can do that as well, and just kind of think about about how you can align your actions and your activities with the cycles of the moon. You can ask your goddess for help. If you don't know what goddess to ask for help, or you're kind of new to this, there are like two main goddesses that I could think of that have to do with balance. And one is Maat, and she is in the Egyptian pantheon, and one is Themis, and she's in the Greek pantheon. You can go ahead and do some more research on that if that would interest you. But if you go further down, like I was talking about, and exploring the root of what is causing the imbalance itself, you might find that you might be better off working with a different goddess, not just a goddess of like generic balance. But if you're finding yourself that you need more self-love, you might work with Aphrodite. Or if you're finding that you need to stand up for yourself more, you might work more with like Hecate or the Morgan or Athena, or some kind of war goddess to like make sure that you are standing up for yourself and what you believe in or whatever. So again, I don't like saying generic, but like the goddesses, if you type in balance, while they are amazing and great, you might be better off trying to create a working relationship with a goddess that is more connected and more able to help you with the actual root of your problem. So there are some crystals that can help you find balance, like selenite, kyanite. I'm always a fan of grounding stones like hematite, anything that's heavy. I think carnelian is good. For healthy boundaries, many people look into carnelian, tiger's eye, maybe honey calcite, although I feel like that has a little bit of softer energy. Think about those things. If you need to work on your self-expression, which again has a lot to do many times with boundaries, is like saying no, or I'm uncomfortable, or I need to change this, or you're not the boss of me. Turquoise, chrysocolla, sodalite, a lot of blue crystals, blue stones have to do with like your throat chakra and also with communication and many times self-expression. If you want to work on your mindset, you might want to think about using celestite or amethyst or just quartz, or again, selenite, to help you change your mindset. So that's pretty much all I have for you tonight. I'm just going to kind of do a quick little wrap up. Balance is important because it will help you lead a healthier life. If you might feel imbalanced, and that could be like that feeling of not everything is getting done, you're overwhelmed, you have anxiety, you might feel out of flow or have bad luck. If you have misplaced priorities, a lack of boundaries, if you're not doing any self-care, and you're just like committing to too many things, that can like cause you to be out of balance. But getting back into balance isn't too hard for many people. Consider your expectations of you. Don't come up with stories in your head of expectations that people are putting on you. A lot of times we kind of make those up and they aren't always factual. So make sure you're kind of fact checking yourself. Create healthy boundaries. Make sure you're saying no. If you don't feel like doing something, you don't have to do it. Like, the end. You live one time. Well, if you believe in reincarnation, you lead multiple lives. But for this trip around the earth, this is your one time. And if you want to read a book and have a glass of wine instead of making a 5-course meal, you can do that. There's no rules. You're making up your own rules. So make sure you're not kind of self-sabotaging yourself. And just kind of work on changing your mindset around that, because a lot of times we're kind of stuck in our ways. Journal, think about your chakras, think about aligning with the seasonal energies. And above all, do some inner work and try to find the root. Keep asking yourself why. Why do I feel like this? What is making me feel like this? What would happen if I didn't do X, Y, Z? What would happen if I did do X, Y, Z? And then, just kind of search for some answers that would be associated and correlated with the root. And if you are having problems, breaking through and doing that, like, completely understandable, but just keep trying, consider all of those things. All right. And I hope that, listening to this might have helped you, might have made you think about a couple things that you could do to try to restore some balance in your life. All right, I will talk to you later. Bye.